What's good, y'all? This is SA, and this is the third month of my devlog journey making Guardians of RPG. Playtest the previous version on itch.io. And while the last 2 months of game development were going over technical fixes and upgrades like the NPC companions and the dialogue system, this month I want to focus on the aspect of the game that would help with making the game come to life. So, for this month, I'll be going over a few features in the game that I think really sets this version apart from the previous ones. I have finally added more custom sprites into the game. In a previous video, I discussed that I had even more custom sprites that I wanted to make in the game, and with the help of one of my friends, I finally got around to making the entire sprite sheet. I was able to send him an example sprite, a template sheet, a color palette, and concept art of the character I needed for the sprite sheet, and he would in turn work on the entire sprite sheet based on the information and tools I gave him. After this, once I was satisfied with the general look of the sprite sheets, I would go in and make minor adjustments to the sprites because sending someone to do revisions over minor details is pretty tedious, and I wanted to be more involved in the design making process. After the sprite sheets were done, I was able to import the assets into the game and create their individual animation controllers and clips to be used as NPCs. As much as I really enjoyed working on turning my characters into these little pixel drawings, this experience taught me that it was still going to take too much time to make custom sprites for every single NPC in the game. So I decided to make a compromise. I decided that since I wouldn't have time to customize every single NPC in the game, I would only be utilizing and customizing sprites done by GIF for main NPCs, and for non-important NPCs, I would be using the sprites done by Virel. All my other sprites are done by GIF, so I do want my main characters in the game to follow a similar art style if I can help it. This includes NPCs that will act as NPC companions, NPCs that will be involved in major cutscenes, and NPCs that you'll have to fight. As for any other NPC, aka the ones that you randomly talk to inside and outside buildings, they'll have the Virel sprites, at least for now, just because it's way too much work to try to make custom sprites to fill up an entire town or an entire building, and I believe Virel already has a bunch of good sprites that has an art style that's relatively close to what I'm looking for. In addition to this, I also reworked the text boxes for the NPCs, so that talking to main NPCs will bring up their name tag when they're speaking, but for regular NPCs, they won't have a name tag at all. So I think the art style between the two types of NPCs, along with the text box, will act as a sort of visual cue to help players know when they're going to be encountering a regular NPC or a main NPC. But with these changes in mind, I ended up filling up all the scenes in Tiro Town with NPCs. Adding NPCs to the game is always a tedious task even when you're using prefabs to help with the process, because for each NPC you have to customize pretty much everything so that you can sell the idea that it's a lived-in world. You have to customize the sprites that will be used in every scene, you have to adjust the walk cycles for certain NPCs, you have to account for if the NPC should turn and face the player when the player is interacting with them, and you have to create every single dialogue file for every single NPC. It's not difficult work for sure, but it can definitely be repetitive and can take a while to complete if you have a bunch of NPCs in the game. But like I mentioned before, I think it makes the world feel a lot more lived in, and when it comes to top-down pixel RPGs, it can be a nice way to keep people invested in your game and your story. Speaking of making the world feel more lived in, I've updated the book feature in the game as well. The books themselves were really just text that helped expound on the world itself in terms of science, history, politics, and culture. In previous versions of Guardians of RPG, you were able to walk up to any bookshelf, and from there, you would get to read one of the many tiny fictional excerpts in the game. And because you only read the books in parts, you would have to seek out the other bookshelves throughout the game in order to complete reading a single book. In this version, you still activate the book feature the same way, but this time, the game gives you the option of whether or not you want to continue reading. I was able to make this change in part due to upgrading my dialogue system to ink, which makes adding decisions to the game much easier. But I also think this is a good change because it allows for me to do a couple of things. The first thing is that someone who clicked on the bookshelf on accident or stumbled onto the wrong book are no longer trapped into waiting for the dialogue text to be over. And this can encourage people to check out all of the bookshelves to see if it's something that they're interested in reading. The second thing is that it allows me to put more into a particular piece of text. If one bookshelf is going to contain chapter 1 of a book, I want to be able to add all the information for chapter 1, but still give readers the opportunity to stop at different points. Essentially, it allows me to add more into these books while encouraging people to read more of these books now that there's no pressure of waiting until all the dialogue is done. I know for some people, they don't really care about reading all the text or talking to all of the NPCs in the game, but I personally really enjoy doing that. I think that's why RPGs are kind of my favorite games, because it allows me to immerse myself in a way that other games that aren't interested in lore simply don't. And now that I reworked my story from the previous version, I'm excited to show some of you what I have in store for Guardians of RPG. Finally, I've added a day and night cycle to the game. There are certain actions and events that can only take place during certain parts of the day or a few times a day. So having a day and night cycle is foundational to ensuring these branching features will also work smoothly. One of the features to this is getting water at the local well in Tiro Town. This feature allows you to get 1 bucket of water per day that you can use to heal yourself in and out of battle. The other feature that acts this way is the medical center. Usually medical centers will heal you all the time, no questions asked, but for this particular medical center, they limit the amount of times you can be healed to only a few times per day. The reason for this is explained in the story, but for now, it means you'll have to rely on other methods to heal yourself, train, and progress throughout the game, which I think will help make this RPG feel more immersive than previous versions. Whenever I was watching people playtest the game, even though it looked like they were enjoying themselves, there weren't that many unique ways to play, which contributed to the gameplay feeling very linear. And I mean, it is kind of linear in the sense that it's a story with a set ending, but I still do want players to come out of the game with a unique experience. And I think incorporating the new NPCs, books, and the day and night cycle features will all contribute to this. So that's all I got for you guys today. As usual, if there are any topics that you guys wanted more information on, I've left some links in the description that help me get started on some of these features. And if you want to show your support, feel free to playtest the previous version of Guardians of RPG and let me know what features you want to see added or improved. And with that being said, I'll see y'all later. Peace.